DND number 10, Circle of Life, in Jesus' name, part 2. It's September 6th, midnight Friday, the day after, or really the night after Eric came home. South Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Taylor couldn't sleep. So much had happened in the past 2 weeks, it felt as if a whole year had gone by instead of 2 weeks. She had almost been kidnapped. She'd almost lost her grandfather. She almost lost the boy she loved. She gained an aunt and 3 uncles, all only 2 years of age. She'd also missed a whole week of school, 3 volleyball practices, and 1 scrimmage game the first week. She'd gone back to school this past week, but it'd still been strange, like everything had changed. She'd also missed her mother's birthday on August 27th, 10 days ago, and her own birthday on the 30th, a week ago. Not that missing a birthday celebration was important, not when you compared it to losing a family member or watching your one true love pass away in a hospital bed. That one true love was just down the hallway, sleeping in the guest bedroom. Gabriel Tanner. She wasn't the only one that loved him. Millions of people now knew and loved him because of his gigantic social media presence that had begun during an impromptu martial arts tournament. That presence had grown to a record-breaking presence because he'd been abducted, and now more recently because he'd risked his life to save hers. Twice. He deserved the honor and the praise, but he was so humble, the fame actually embarrassed him. He was also famous for his faith, for his relationship with Jesus, and for his powerful story and prayer after he emerged from a coma to talk about miracles. Every young girl in the country wanted him, but he was hers, and he was just down the hall. And normally, if she woke in the middle of the night, she'd pick up her phone and call him because he was usually 3,000 miles away in the little rural town of Pine Forest, Georgia. But tonight, she just decided she was going to pay him a personal visit. She swung her feet over the side of the bed and padded to the door and opened it quietly and peered down the hall. Her parents' bedroom was on the main level, which meant, besides her and Gabe, the only other occupied bedroom currently on the upper level of their home contained her brother, young Eric. Everyone called him young Eric because he was a third. Her grandfather was called Eric, and her father went by Ricky since he was a young boy. Taylor looked left to make sure there was no light coming out from under her brother's door, and then headed to the right, just past the staircase and the first door on the left. She stood by the door to listen. There was no sound. Slowly, she turned the knob and peeked into the room. It was pitch black. She slipped inside and quietly closed the door. She heard his breathing catch and heard him move. "Tay, is that you?" She smiled at the sound of his voice. Just a little over a week ago, she'd been told that he was dying. She thought she'd never hear his voice again. "Yes, it's me," she replied and moved forward. He switched on the bedside lamp. She came to the bed and knelt down on the floor beside him and sat back on her haunches. She couldn't help but smile. Even after being awakened in the middle of the night, he was so good-looking. His thick, dark hair tousled, his blue eyes sparkling. He smiled, and the dimple in his left cheek almost made her swoon. "Taylor, what's going on?" he asked. "I couldn't sleep, and normally when I can't sleep, I'll just call you, but I decided I'd take advantage of you actually being right here in my home." He turned on his side and looked down at her. "Why can't you sleep?" She shrugged. "I just keep thinking about everything that's happened over the past 2 weeks. I mean, you were going to die, and then you didn't. You were miraculously healed. And Granddaddy was dead, and then he came back to life. And before that, you saved me from those guys, and I don't even know what they would have done to me, but I overheard my parents talking about it, and I can't even conceive the things they were saying. I'm so grateful that you saved me." She shivered, her teeth slightly chattering. "Are you cold?" "I don't know if I'm cold or if me thinking about what's happened is giving me chills. It's all so surreal." He raised the covers. "Come here and I'll make you warm." She couldn't turn him down. She climbed in beside him, turned toward him. He pulled the covers around her and put his arm across her body and pressed her close to him. "There. All better?" She purred. "Much better." He smiled at her and tilted her face up and kissed her several times. He touched the front of her nightshirt. Cute. She giggled. I've had this Tweety Bird nightshirt since I was like 12. And it still fits? Well, it was too big for me when I got it, and now it's only slightly too small for me. I guess you haven't grown too much in 4 years. She frowned. She just turned 17, actually, a week ago, but nobody remembered. Nobody remembered for a good reason. They'd been at the hospital for a week, pretty much saying goodbye to both Gabe and her grandfather. Her silly birthday wasn't important. Still, she was going to have to remind him soon that she was 17 now. But not now. She didn't want him to think that she was being petty. She smiled at him and touched his face. I have to keep reminding myself that you're really here. I keep telling God, thank you, thank you. And I keep wondering if after all you've been through, after speaking with Jesus face to face, are you still the same boy I fell in love with? He sighed. I'm the same, but I'm also different. I now have to tell the world as much as I can that Jesus is real, and I'm not telling others because of my faith, but because I know. I know he's real. But Tay, I'm still the same human boy because, well, it's taking a great deal of willpower to not put my hand on you right now and see what's under that Tweety Bird nightshirt. Oh. I'm supposed to help you with that, right? I guess I need to leave. She frowned. I guess I'm not a very helpful companion because after thinking I'd lost you and having you right here, I want to give everything to you, and I'm wishing I could touch you too. He blew out a breath at the thought. Well, then I guess it's up to me to be the strong one this time, but I just realized maybe I am a little stronger because the thought of speaking to Jesus again and tell him that I fell, I so don't want to have to do that. So I'll be strong. She sighed. Aw, I love you so much, Gabe. Tell me what Jesus looked like. Well, it was strange. He kind of shifted. He looked like every picture I've ever seen of him, though each picture can be really different. It was like he was the most beautiful part of every likeness. He was beautiful, handsome, I guess, bright. His eyes smiled. He exuded love. Sometimes his hair was kind of golden and sometimes brown and sometimes white, all in a few seconds. Sometimes it was longer and sometimes shorter. He was strong and fit. I remember that because a lot of renditions I've seen show him in a different way, like kind of frail. Well, that's interesting. Gabe nodded, and mostly he was powerful. The power was almost too much to take. But when he moved away, you immediately wanted more. It was addictive. Even now, I want to be near him again. Well, maybe that's why I crave being near you, because you also exude a power, Gabe. Maybe that's why so many people follow you. They feel it too. You're addictive. Well, if they feel a power, it's not from me, it's the power of God, and I just hope I can do his work and his will. He looked at her beautiful face and ran a finger down her nose to her lips and kissed her again. And I think you and I were supposed to find each other. She smiled. I think so too. Funny thing though, we've been around each other almost our whole lives. He yawned and ran his hand over her hair. Hopefully that will continue. So tell me, babe. Tell you what? After you were drugged, the next thing I knew, you were standing by my bed holding my hand. What happened before that? Like, what happened when you weren't standing by my bedside? I want to know everything from your point of view. Oh, well, that's a big order. Why do you want to know? Just trust me. He didn't want to tell her that getting her to talk about what she went through would help her emotionally and mentally. That's what his dad says anyway. Okay, well, I have a vague recollection of riding in the ambulance, she began. New scene. It's September 7th, Saturday morning, South Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Young Eric trotted down the steps and headed straight to the kitchen and straight to make himself a protein smoothie. Good morning, Dad, he mumbled. Ricky finished downing a bottle of water and turned. Morning, son. Missed you on the beach this morning. Sorry, I overslept. Guess I was really tired. Ricky nodded. Your mom is too. We spent a lot of energy over the past few weeks, and Dad coming home yesterday. The body can only take so much. Yeah, I'm still, shaking my head at the miracle. I mean, every time I think about it, I get all emotional, young Eric said. Me too, and grateful. So grateful. You know, there are a lot of people on social media who are claiming the whole thing is a fake. Ricky shrugged. Well, you know how I feel about the media, mainstream or social. And remember, there are also a lot who are hearing the call and recognizing the truth. Let them who have ears to hear, he quoted. Young Eric nodded. Did you notice if your sister or Gabe were up and about yet? I didn't see either one of them. I do know that Gabe was pretty wiped out. He says he's been feeling like he could sleep all day, every day. Ricky frowned. He might either need some extra recuperation time or some conditioning. I think I'll go up and speak with him. Eric nodded as he dumped a banana into the blender. Ricky went up the steps and headed straight to Gabe's door. He rapped his knuckles a few times on the door, turned the knob, and pushed it open. He froze, gave his blood pressure time to settle, and leaned quietly against the doorframe. Gabe stirred and looked up. Hey, Mr. Keno, what's going on? He asked sleepily, rubbing his eyes. Well, that's what I'd like to know. It was the soft tone to his voice that woke Gabe completely. He gasped and sat up quickly. He immediately shook Taylor awake. Taylor, wake up, he said firmly. Is it morning already? Your dad is here. She gasped and sat straight up, her eyes wide. Mr. Keno, it's not what it seems, Gabe began. Nothing happened. Keep going. Gabe nodded. Taylor was having a hard time sleeping. She came in my room and she was sitting by the bed on the floor just talking about, like the miracle. And she shivered and I told her to come under the covers and I'd make her warm. He slowed because he realized how that sounded, and Ricky's eyebrows shot up. What that sounds like, that's not what I meant. He blew out a breath. Isn't it? Gabe thought. I didn't mean it like a suggestive way, I swear. Ricky waited. Taylor crawled out from under the covers and out of the bed and stood beside it. Ricky looked her over as she stood there in her Tweety Bird nightshirt. Do you have anything on under that, young lady? Taylor frowned. No, sir. Gabe drew a quick breath. I did not know that. I swear I wouldn't lie to you, Mr. Keno. He, too, got out of bed, wearing nothing but his boxer briefs. Ricky shook his head and looked at Taylor. And I suppose you didn't know he didn't have anything on but his underwear. She smiled. Well, to be honest, I did know because, his chest was bare. But, Daddy, it's like he's wearing shorts, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm sorry, Mr. Keno. She was struggling with some things, and I encouraged her to talk about everything that happened and how she was feeling, and I guess we fell asleep. I've been really tired lately, and I can't seem to get enough sleep, and when I do sleep, it's like dead to the world kind of stuff. If I'd woken up and realized she was still in bed with me, I would have sent her back to her room, I would have taken her back to her room. Ricky closed his eyes and pointed at Taylor. You scoot and get dressed. You have to have breakfast and then you have volleyball practice. She started out, then turned and kissed her father's cheek. We didn't do anything, so go easy on him. Besides, he almost died just a week ago. Ricky smiled and shook his head. He turned back to Gabe, who was now sitting on the side of the bed. Sir, you don't have to say anything else. You saved her life. I'm thinking you saved my father's life too, maybe. I trust that you have her best interest in your mind, but I also remember what it's like to be a young man with girls everywhere trying to get to you. Gabe nodded in understanding. I guess because you were such a big movie star, you had a lot of girls coming at you. I did, and I actually finally gave in. Gabe's mouth opened, but no words came out. It was a bad time. In a way, you're in the same position. Well, I'm no movie star. Well, you're just as popular. And all those pics of different parts of your body having millions of views. You think that's because they think your shorts are attractive? Gabe blushed. I'm just saying, you're in a difficult position. You have to be strong, even if the girl making advances is my own daughter. I'm trying really hard, sir. I don't want to have to tell God that I was weak and then I gave in. Ricky nodded. Been there, done that, and it's not fun. So you keep being strong. And it would help if you don't tempt yourself by inviting her into your bed to get warm. Gabe grimaced and nodded his head. Yes, sir, of course you're right. It's just that she was shivering, and the need to help her, to protect her, I mean, it's really strong. Ricky chuckled. Well then, I guess I have nothing I can say to that, since it was your overwhelming need to protect her that saved her life. Well done. Gabe smiled. You're taking her to volleyball, so you better get dressed. Yes, sir. New scene. It's still September 7th, Saturday morning. Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Jake Apple slapped a hand over his wife's mouth. Shh, Lena Bug, he said with a chuckle. If you scream, we'll have a bunch of men come running into the bedroom to see what's wrong, and that would be very embarrassing. Lena giggled and then sighed with pleasure as Jake rolled to her side and pulled her over to lie her head on his chest. She ran her hand over the ridges of muscle. I'm so happy, Jake. So content. He smiled. Me too. We will have been a married couple for 3 months coming up next week, and it's been the happiest 3 months of my life. She frowned, except for the few weeks you've had to report to Camp Lejeune. I know, baby. I'm happy too. He didn't say anything about the having to report part because there was simply nothing to say about that, and soon it wouldn't be for a week. It would be deployment, and though they knew it was coming, it was going to hurt pretty bad. She sighed, and using her fingers to draw circles on his chest. You know, you made good on your honeymoon promise. What promise was that? You said you were going to make love to me all night long. He smiled, thinking of the most amazing night of his life. But then we got the call about Grams, she said softly. I really miss her. But it was so cool that Gabe saw her when he, died, I guess, or nearly died. She sighed. First Grams, and then Taylor and Gabe, and then Grandmaster Keno. I'm still having trouble digesting everything that's happened. But you know, Bugs, you and I, we somehow knew that Gabe was going to pull through, remember? I remember. Every time I prayed, I had a feeling of peace come over me, like Jesus was whispering, don't worry, everything will be all right. You know what I mean? I do. That's exactly how it seemed. I wonder why we felt that way and everyone else was so worried and so sad and so desperate. I've thought about that, and I think it's because we weren't Gabe's immediate family, and with that little bit of separation, we were able to have a better perspective. As much as we love Gabe, I mean, he's like my true little brother, still, maybe we weren't quite so desperate because we didn't live with him on a daily basis. That's what I think, anyway. That sounds logical. And now, here he is, living and thriving and almost completely healed. God is so good. She snuggled up under his chin. Yes, he is. And I'm so grateful for how things turned out. Her fingers moved down to circle his navel. Me too. He reached down to stop her hand. He pushed her off his chest and leaned over her. And I'm grateful for you. He lowered his head and kissed her, softly at first, and then passionately. He looked up, thinking for just a second. What are you thinking? Lena asked. He smiled. I'm thinking the sun is about to come up, so I'd better hurry. New scene. Eric Sr. gazed around the dining room table at so many people that he loved, and most of them weren't even related to him. The Apples. He'd known John since he was a teenager. He was only a year younger than Ricky. He'd met Jody shortly thereafter at one of his classes. Both of them were amazingly special people. John went into the military, Marine Special Forces, but eventually came home to stay. Their son Jacob hadn't come along until John was almost 30, and now little Jake was a Marine Raider. Then there was the Apples' next-door neighbors, the Stewarts. They were only represented today by Milena because her mother was having a difficult pregnancy and the rest of the family stayed in Georgia. Eric met the Stewarts through the apples. They too were amazing people, and Eric discovered that they had a connection. Lisa Stewart's mother, Lou, had become the owner of CEO Hotels. Had become the owner and CEO of Golden Hotels. Lou had maneuvered a takeover from the former owners, the Crane brothers, who were Eric's nemesis. Ended up on the wrong side of the law, well, one on the wrong side of the veil. And then when Lou passed away, she'd left the hotels to Lisa, who then came to Eric to get advice on how to deal with the acquisition. And now their eldest, Lanabug, was married to Jake. The Stewarts also had 3 other beautiful children: Charlie, age 14, a new high school freshman, Matt, age 12, and little Erilyn, age 7. And soon, another one, due in December, if all goes well. Then there were the Tanners, a large family of 9 currently, but that would soon change. Ricky had taken notice of the Tanners and befriended them way back before Lizzie and Keegan married. Keegan had been in the news, first touted as a hero who'd brought down a child trafficking ring, and then vilified for using excessive force while trying to rescue Jeff Davis from the terrorist who'd been trying to buy the babies. It was a hard time. And now here was Keegan sitting at Eric's breakfast table with his sweet wife and their 6 daughters. 5 daughters from Lizzie's first marriage, plus one soon-to-be son-in-law, Heather's fiancé, Nolan Sawyer, and finally little Iris, the youngest. But not for long, because Lizzie, too, was expecting in the beginning of December. Their son, 18-year-old Gabe, was currently staying at Ricky's house because he wanted to spend time with his girlfriend, Ricky's daughter, Taylor. Then there was the 4 newest faces, 2-year-olds, Manny, Noah, Abe, and Angelina, Eric's and Shelley's own children. They were born by surrogates using stolen sperm and eggs from when Eric and Shelley had been abducted 3 years earlier. They'd only found out about the children 2 weeks ago, and now here they sit, their beautiful brown eyes, sweet smiles, and even sweeter spirits melting everyone's hearts. Also living in the Keno house was Jeffy and Cam. Cam had to leave early this morning for work, but Eric's eyes met Jeffy's. She used to be his youngest child. Now she had 4 younger siblings. 5, if with the help of Jeffy's psychic abilities they are able to locate the 5th living child with the club foot who'd been given away. There had actually been 10 surrogate children, but 2 died at birth and 3 had been murdered, as had the 10 surrogate mothers. Eric sighed as he allowed the ache to subside. Jeffy smiled at him, and he knew what she was thinking. It was exactly 2 weeks ago that they'd sat around this table at an Ameritech meeting and had no idea that their whole world would be turned upside down. But here they were, though not all the same people at the table, still people he loved, respected, and admired, sharing breakfast with them, with his new children. God is amazing, and Eric knew God had those murdered children in his arms. Shelley put her hand on Eric's shoulder as she placed a breakfast plate in front of him. Are you trying to decide who to call on to bless the food? He smiled. Well, there are so many choices, I can't decide. Any volunteers? Who would like to say the blessing? Me, Iris said loudly. Eric nodded as everyone laughed. Iris it is, then. Iris, do you want me to help you? Rose asked. Iris frowned. No, I can do it myself. Gabe told me how. Everyone smiled. Eric was watching Iris when she looked right at him. Bow your head, Iris commanded. They all chuckled, and Eric complied. Dear Father, thank you so much for our food. Please bless it. I love you, Jesus, so much. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen, they all repeated. That was beautiful, Iris, Eric said. I want to say it, Angelina said. Okay, one more. And if anyone else wants to say it after Angelina, you'll have to wait until lunch. Got it? Eric said. They all nodded. They bowed their heads again while Angelina said almost an exact duplicate of Iris's prayer. They all ate their food and chatted about what would be taking place that evening. Finally, John Apple looked up. Eric, I just want to say thanks for including our families in your, what, I guess your goodbye letter. It meant a lot to us to know that you love us because we all truly love you, and we continue to thank God every day that you're still among us. Amen, Lizzie said. Eric smiled. It was a strange event, wasn't it? I've been pondering it. The event itself must be significant in its timing. I mean, almost 3 years earlier, Jeffy and I had that vision. Then right before it happened, Gabe had both a dream when we were visiting in Georgia and a vision right here in our own kitchen. Why would God give us that heads up? What is the significance? Keegan frowned. You don't think that you and Gabe being on death's door, having joint NDEs, has meaning enough? Well, yes, of course I do. It was a truly miraculous occurrence. But I'm getting a thought that this miracle and the subsequent revival in faith sweeping the nation is not the only thing. This is like a prelude to something, or preparation for something even bigger. Oh, Lord, I don't know if I can take anything bigger, Lizzie said. Keegan squeezed her hand. You'd be surprised at how much stronger we can become, Eric stated. I'm just saying, be ready. Stay in prayer. Don't get distracted. I was told that Gabe had a message from Miss Maddie to be sure to follow God's laws because he's preparing his warriors for something. That sounds pretty big to me. Jake Apple nodded. Until Jesus comes, we got to stay strong and continue to occupy, which means to me to hold the light in a world of darkness. Gabe and I have talked about that, and it's what both of us will try to do all the way to the giving of our lives if necessary. Lena sighed at his words, and Rose reached under the table and squeezed her hand. Eric nodded. That's commendable, of course. As in John 15:13, greater love has no man than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. We must be ready to do just that, or accept that, and to continue in the faith and know that we'll see each other again. God knows that the hardest thing in life is the death of a loved one, and he's made it possible that all of that sorrow will be wiped away. In Revelation 21, it says that he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. What a beautiful promise. He looked around and gave a soft laugh. Sorry, guess you didn't realize there would be a sermon at breakfast. No, but we're grateful to be preached it by you, Daddy, Jeffy assured him, because the alternative is not preferable. Everyone agreed. Shelley rose and went to her children to urge them to finish their breakfast, promising them a trip to the swings and slide out in the back with Daisy and Lily Tanner, and of course little Iris too. That got them taking big bites of their scrambled eggs. And the rest of the group helped to clear their dishes and clean up quickly because they all had a big project to finish by 4 o'clock. New scene. Excuse me. It's still September 7th, Saturday morning, Denver, Colorado. Mike Moreland stood in the beautiful park at sunrise, watching as his friend and photographer/videographer worked magic, making the attractive fitness guru, Merrill Mitchell, look like a superstar. The lighting was perfect. The mountains in the Denver setting made the ideal backdrop for the shoot. The company, Mitch's Fitness, was about to get hot, and their fitness videos and sportswear were going to sell millions in merch. Though for the first time, he had a few misgivings with the client he was working with. He'd almost turned her down. He usually made it an absolute that he must completely believe in whatever his client was selling. He'd seen a lot of fitness crazes, and this woman was into smarter, not harder kind of stuff. It sounded good, but it felt a little sleazy for some reason, and he was having a hard time figuring out why he felt that way. The woman was gorgeous. She was fit and trim, full of energy, positive and upbeat. She was also powerful, almost overwhelmingly so, and maybe that was what sold him. She was blonde, but not a natural blonde like Rose. Meryl's hair had dark roots, but she was very fit and very buxom. Still, if he were to be honest, she was no more fit than Rose Anderson. He smiled at the thought of her. Maybe it was because Rose that maybe it was because of Rose that he wasn't comfortable with the smarter, not harder approach, as Rose believed in working hard at something. She didn't believe in magic pills, and he was sure of that. He admired her for it. Though Rose didn't work out like this woman, she seemed to be every bit as fit. He knew Rose did the martial arts thing a few days a week, and she did weight training to supplement that discipline. She rode horses. She went to gun ranges. He shook his head. He was still trying to understand her obsession with guns. He wasn't sure if he approved. He'd never shot a gun. He never even held one. He didn't know anything about them, really, but he knew what it was like to have one pointed at him because Rose had drawn on him herself. He couldn't tell if Rose was truly interested in him. He was thinking he was interested in her. She got to him. He definitely wanted her in his bed, but she was Victorian when it came to that, though he did like a challenge. It seemed she occupied his mind a lot when she wasn't around. He thought about the ad they'd shot with her and her sisters. It'd gone immediately viral, as he knew it would, especially once he let it be known that both sets of twins were the half-sisters of the Gabe Tanner. It didn't bother him a bit that he used the boy to manipulate the media. And just as he'd promised, Twin Wave Beauty sales skyrocketed, giving both himself and the twins a hefty paycheck. Of course, there were many more steps to be taken for Twin Wave, holiday ads coming up, specials, and the like. But he knew what he was doing, and no doubt the Twin Wave would be on a... But he knew what he was doing and had no doubt that Twin Wave would be on a hot gift list this coming holiday season. He came back to the present as the shoot ended, and Meryl Mitchell, nicknamed Mitch, approached him with her wide, gorgeous smile. "So what do you think?" she asked. He took her hands and smiled warmly. "I think you're going to be the next Allie Brooks," he said, naming the current fitness trainer to the stars. She clapped her hands together. "I'm trusting you to make that happen. And I'm trusting you because I don't get paid until that happens." She grabbed his arm. "Well, now that this is done, what do you say we go celebrate?" He grimaced. "I have a lot of work to do, and it's only 9 o'clock in the morning." "Aw, come on. Everyone needs a little downtime," she said, leaning close, touching his face. "You need to relax, and I can take care of that for you." The suggestion was clear. "Okay, Mitch, I may have time for a couple of drinks at lunch. Go home, change. I'll pick you up at noon." She kissed his cheek. "Awesome. See you then." He nodded. Because he could do what he did so well, namely make people and companies into stars using social media, he was used to beautiful women throwing themselves at him. He usually had no problem with that, but he wasn't really feeling it today. Maybe he was becoming immune to it. Still, he was tense and did need a little downtime. Even though he just agreed to a date with the lovely Mitch, he pulled out his phone and pushed a few buttons. "Hey, Mike." "Hello, Rose. How's Gabe?" "He's great, almost back to normal. How's your shoot going in Denver?" "I'm about to wrap. It looks like it's going to be another winner." "I'm impressed," Rose said. "Good. That's my quest in life, to impress you." And how do I impress you?" "Well, you're probably the most beautiful girl I've ever met." She laughed. "Other than my twin." "Right, other than her." "And that's it? I mean, beauty is only skin deep, at least that's what they say." "Well, first, don't diminish the power of beauty. And then I'm sure once you get out of college and really set your mind to something, you'll be pretty darn impressive." Rose frowned. "And you were a natural when we were shooting the ads. Heck, with your beauty and my brains, we could take over the world." Rose gave a brittle laugh and then sighed. "So, what's next on your agenda?" "I'll be flying out tomorrow." "Where to?" "Well, I guess that's up to you. When are you headed home?" "On Monday. Tonight we have a big deal party, and tomorrow we're all headed to church together." "Gee, sounds like loads of fun," he said sarcastically. Rose frowned. "Going to church is fun. You should try it sometimes." "Yeah, not really my cup of tea." "Oh, what is your cup of tea? Do you not believe in God at all?" "Not really," he replied flippantly, as if it wasn't important. "Well, now, that's a shame, because I guarantee he believes in you." "Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but to me that just sounds like you telling me that Santa Claus is real." Wow. You know, there's way too much evidence that there is much more going on in this world than we can experience with just our five senses. Too much evidence to deny it. Well, maybe. If we ever have some time to kill, you can explain all that to me one day. Oh, you can count on it, Rose said fervently. And while you're at it, you can explain how owning guns can go along with the supreme deity. Rose was silent a moment because he'd thrown her off. She drew a deep breath. Oh, I can do that right now. You see, under God, we have the divine right of free will. That is the right to choose our own path and to make our own decisions. And many people exercise that freedom of choice by owning guns so that we can defend ourselves. And our Constitution, having been written by godly men, guarantees that our government will not interfere with that right, the right to defend ourselves, to bear arms. The dark side lies to you. The dark side lies to you. They try to make you think that you can give up your guns and let the good-hearted government defend you and take care of you, and that's a load of BS. The reason a government would have to disarm their citizens is not a good one. Think hard and figure that one out. And if your objection to owning guns is gun violence, I can tell you that the answer to gun violence is not taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. And guns don't, I know, guns don't kill people, people kill people, he added sarcastically. And with that, I really need to go because I need to get some stuff done before I fly out tomorrow. Oh, well, okay. She drew a breath. So, where are you flying to? I guess I'll head back to Portland for a little bit. Well, maybe we can meet up sometime before the holidays. Yep, we'll have to, because you and your sisters are scheduled to do more ads for Christmas. We'll have to? Okay, well, call me, and we'll figure out when to get together. I will. Have a safe flight. Thanks, and you have a blast at church. Yep, bye. She ended the call and stared at the phone. You okay, Rosie? Violet asked, joining her in the Kino's kitchen. She shrugged. I guess. I have a feeling I won't be seeing Mike anytime soon. Why not? I think he just broke up with me without really saying the words. Did y'all have a fight? Well, not really, but he just compared God to Santa Claus and pretty much insinuated that I'm all beauty and no brains. Oh. She was silent, not knowing what to say to make her sister feel better. Rose smiled at her twin, putting on a brave face. We've never really discussed God or religion before. I guess I just assumed he understood how I felt about those things. I mean, I'm pretty forthright, aren't I? Violet smiled fondly. Yeah, I'd say so, to put it mildly. Rose only smiled slightly at the tease. I mean, if he doesn't want to believe, that's fine, but he shouldn't disparage what I believe, right? No, he should know you well enough by now to know that speaking ill of God would be hurtful, especially knowing what we all just witnessed. She looked up. Right? He does know, correct? Yes, I went to great lengths to explain it all because I thought it would be a good spread the word type thing. She looked down, shaking her head. Violet sighed and put her arm around her sister. Oh, honey, don't be sad. Rose nodded. I'm trying not to be. She looked up. Do I come across as dumb? Certainly not. Tell me the truth, Vi. I am telling you the truth. You were the one in school with straight A's without even studying. You're the one Dad talks to about politics and economics and business. Honey, you have a brilliant and quick mind. Rose fought back the emotions that surged. Oh, Rosie, Violet said as she threw her arms around her sister. You can't let what some guy said off the cuff define you. I know you have more confidence than that, and maybe he didn't really mean it the way you think. Rose wiped at her eyes. I mean, logically, I didn't really know if this guy was right for me. I even told Dad as much, so I'm not sure why this hurts. What if I'm supposed to teach him about God? What if I'm his chance to find salvation and I just blew it? Well, if you're supposed to teach Mike about God, then God will let you know. You said he didn't actually say the words. Maybe he's just a little confused. Yeah, but I got a distinct vibe. Let's just see how long it is before he calls again. That is, if he calls again. Okay, let's just see. So you want to go see what we can do to help Shelley for tonight? I mean, that'll give you something to focus on. Yep, let me just run upstairs for a minute. She turned quickly and ran up the front staircase. Violet watched her go, her heart breaking for her always strong, always confident, always in control sister. And that is the end of chapter 1.